This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. I got to give a disclaimer first, because the last time I had these sunglasses on, I got a call from my brother Farrakhan asking me if everything was okay. I don't know whether he thought I was concealing a black eye or what. But look, I'm going to take them off just so you can see that everything is okay. There's nothing wrong. I just have them on because I can't stand to watch what's going on. So I want to, I just want to be, it is crazy what's happening. Anyway, we got Kevin Jenkins back in the house. We got the queen of the show, Diana Murray Clements, on the line, and we got Vincent Squire from South Jersey, giving it to us live, and want to thank him for all that he has contributed since he's, been coming in or Skyping in on the show. We got a lot to talk about, and at some point, I have a 7-minute video that I want to play. You guys let me know during the course of the conversation when you think it would be appropriate. But what the 7-minute video is, and I got tapped on Facebook by Courtney Wicks, about this video. It is a 7-minute video that talks about coronavirus capitalism. And what they're talking about is, and remember I said this once before, I said roughly 80% of what you purchase is purchased based on fear. 80% or more of what you purchase is purchased based on fear. Life insurance, you purchase it based on fear. A lot of times you purchase the car, you purchase based on fear. Safety, right? Mute your phone, whatever that noise is. I hear noise in the background.
That's Vincent.
But you purchase these things based on fear.
Not me. I'm in an empty room.
Okay.
And you don't purchase life insurance based on fear. That's planning.
No.
You do purchase life insurance based on fear.
People purchase it based on fear. I'm telling you. I'm going to send you guys the article. 80%
I don't care what that article say. No, they don't.
80% of what you purchase is purchased based on fear.
Don't be trying to down my industry.
I'm not trying. Listen.
People buy life insurance based on the simple fact of their accumulated assets or wealth during their life will not be ruined for their families and friends or whoever they are actually supporting to their death.
Diane, you can call it, listen,
planning.
look, you could call it, I don't want to mince, you can call it planning, right? So when remember Volvo, right? And I don't know where Volvo is now, but they were selling their car based on safety, but it was really based on fear, right? People didn't want to get hurt, so buy a Volvo, right? So, but 80% or more of what you purchase is purchased based on fear. Understanding that, when we look at what's happening now and what the government is asking us to purchase, it is based on the fear mongering that is taking place right now around coronavirus. And so we have to be very cautious when we're looking at what is being proposed, because we're all in a frantic and we're ready to give up liberties, we're ready to give up our democracy, we're ready to give up everything based on the propaganda that is being pushed out there and that we're consuming every day. So that 7-minute video, it's a powerful video, and at some point during the show, we're going to play it.
Yeah, well, that's great. How's everybody doing? It's good to see everybody. I hear everybody.
Listen, I am. Well, I'm not quarantined, but I am being very careful, very cautious.
Very fearful?
No, not. You know what? Not fearful. I think when there's noise in the background. Please, whatever that movement is.
Not me.
All right. but
told you it was Vincent.
but whatever. But because the people are saying it's difficult for them to hear.
So Vincent, when you're not speaking, you need to mute your phone.
All right. So
I am muted.
Okay. So what's happening right now is folks are not doing the research, and one of the things that's fearful for me. So I'm afraid. I'm afraid for our people, Vincent, because we are not information seekers. We talked about that before, right? We are not, we're not intellectually curious. And so we'd rather be headline surfers. So the sensationalism that is playing itself out through the media is what we're gravitating toward, as opposed to doing research and understanding exactly what's going on. The fact of the matter is this. There is a virus out here. Based on what the scientists are saying, it is highly contagious. That it lives on surfaces. There were reports yesterday that it even lives on your clothing. But wait a minute. But it enters into your body, right, through your orifices. So when they say wash your hands, don't touch your face, meaning don't touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Those are the ways that it enters in. So you can be present with it, but touching infected surfaces or touching infected people, right, and having it on your hands. So if you were to get the virus on your hands, right, that alone is not going to cause you to contract it. It is what you do beyond that. So not washing your hands with soap and hot water, and not touching your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. So you have to follow those steps. And because people haven't followed them, right, is why we have the spread. So that is my only fear. So I follow these things, Vincent, and I do try not to be in crowded places. I do go out though. Diane yells at me when I do. But I do go out. I limit where I go, and I make sure that the places that I go are not crowded. And I have hand sanitizer, but I've always used hand sanitizer. I've always washed my hands, right? So, I'm not paranoid. I'm cautious, but I'm not paranoid.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have my own personal opinion about all of these things. I think that there are going to continue to be viruses. I think that there's going to be issues in that space for many, many decades to come. But what I'm seeing now is complete government overreach. I think we will never get our freedoms back. And I got to tell you, major corporations in this country will be adjusted. They will make their money. I'm not worried about the stock market. And this frenzy that I'm seeing now is so dangerous that I'm concerned for people in this country. And, I believe that now that everybody that goes to the hospital that has preconditions and that have preconditions are now going to be designated as someone that has coronavirus. And I've seen this before, too. So if you've been in the business, you've seen this happen in this space before. And I'm just fearful for people. You're fearful one way. I'm fearful another way. And I got to tell you, I don't think we're going to ever rebound from it. And I think that was the intent from the beginning. And, all of this other psychobabble, what I'm hearing about people, I think people should have been washing their hands. I think people that are, have bad respiratory issues, they should be in the house during this season anyway, because it's always a bad season. Last year, we had one of the worst flu seasons ever. Now, this year, we have coronavirus, and I just find it all interesting, and I think we have the right to question this. I think we have the right to seek answers. I think we have the right to have a bigger dialogue. Coming out of 911, something as horrific that happened during 9/11, and right after that, we lost majority of all of our civil liberties in this country. And this is just the second phase of it. So I don't want anybody crying in the next 6 months, talking about, oh my God, look what they're doing to us. You've been warned, you've been told, and it's going to continue.
Well, before everybody gets into the zombie apocalypse mode, let's look at a few things. First, let's look at what fear is. Fear is a natural emotion. It's a biochemical response. It's basically known terrors or things that cause you pain going into your memories. It's then reactivated by amygdala, which gives you the fight or flight response, which stimulates testosterone and giving you the ability to either run or fight. It is just basically a memory base of something bad happened when this happened, and I need to be aware. Now, there's a big thing between, and here's the thing about fears. United States military during the World War I, when they started the paratrooper, were complex because people just weren't volunteering to jump out of perfectly serviceable airplanes. It was fear. So they studied fear. Now, today's society, we have 30,000 in the pathological industry of known fears or recognized fears. But what we found out with fear in the United States military survey, and they put 2,000 babies and somewhere close to 3,000 things that people fear. And they found that we're only born with two fears. Fear of loud noise, which is shock and startle, and the fear of the sensation of falling. That's it. So every fear that people have now, including this virus, is taught. And if you are taught to fear, then you can be untaught to fear. Now, there's a big difference between fear and caution. Fear is basically that terrorizing effect that has you want fight or flight, or the deer in the headlight. Caution is what we do when we buy insurance. We are cautious that if something happens, we need to be prepared for it. There's a big difference between that. And what we have to do is distinguish what is giving us this fear with the coronavirus and caution. We deal with the coronavirus is actually a liquid or a liquid-based virus. The same thing like a common cold. It is therefore body through entry through ear, nose, eyes, throat. So, touching something on that surface, as Eric says, does not give you the virus. But when you introduce it into your body in either of those ways, gives you the virus. The big fear with the coronavirus is that it is very infectious. And yes, we have went through these things before. We have went through pandemics with chicken pox, measles, smallpox, which is one of the biggest reasons why the disease control has been pumping their chest about the elimination of those diseases through vaccinations. Right. We also have the same thing every year with cold and flu seasons. The common cold has been with man since as far as anybody can remember. Right. Yet this virus is so common, we still can't vaccinate against it.
Right, but here's the other thing that is concerning about coronavirus is not only that it's highly infectious, but you can be asymptomatic for 6 days or so. Right, which means that you could be walking around, you could actually have the virus, you could be highly contagious for 6 days and nobody know it. And so
can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Who told you that?
Who told me that? Well, basic research, and I did have an interview.
Wait, hold on, time out. Now I'm back on the show. Now I'm going to ask you a question again. Who told me? I research a lot. No, I'm just going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Who is telling you that? Is it the medical industry that's telling you that? Is it your research? Because see, I'm trying to go somewhere with this. So the CDC, who has no credibility, and the World Health Organization,
why do you say the
CDC has no credibility?
Stop.
I'm having a conversation on the phone.
I know, and I understand that we're having a conversation, but when you make a statement
I
and say
asked you,
that the CDC has no credibility,
I said to you, who
that the health organization
That's
has
right.
no
Those
credibility.
institutions-
What is that
Wait a
based
minute.
on?
Let me say
The CDC and the World Health has no accreditation. Where have you been for the last
You don't
70
know
years?
what you are talking about. You're just running your mouth and you're regurgitating something somebody you heard. I'm telling you.
Trust and believe. I know what I'm talking about. And when you say
Wait a
something
minute.
like the CDC
All right.
has no accreditation,
Yeah, I think
a
that's
world-recognized organization, it makes you sound like a total jackass.
You sound ridiculous. You don't know anything about the CDC.
Do you know how preposterous you sound saying that the CDC has no accreditation?
CDC is not. Let me tell you something.
See, here's your big problem. You don't talk to a lot of people who graduated college.
Just because you locked in the house with you losing your mind, I'm going to tell you again, the CDC, if you listen to anything that the CDC is telling you, who works directly for Big Pharma, who is one of the worst institutions in the world, and if you listen to what the World Health Organization, who is funded by all of these major corporations and countries on
Wait,
you're out of your mind.
1 second.
You're
No,
out of your mind.
Wait, one second.
Here again,
Wait,
what is
listen,
we call it fear.
All right,
When
guys.
people say something like
Guys.
something like the CDC is funded by Big Pharma,
Listen.
that's not true.
Listen.
It is not.
What are you talking
If the CDC was funded by Big, you don't know what you're talking about. You're going off of some jailhouse rumors and assumptions in which you haven't even researched. Really, look up who funds the CDC.
Before you go any further, you don't know who you talking
The CDC. Here we go.
Listen, I'm gonna hang up on everybody. I'm gonna listen. Stop, Vincent, Kevin, please. So what I'm getting, listen, guys, what I'm getting from what I'm getting from, all right, stop, please. What I'm getting from listeners is that they can't hear because you're talking over.
That's not my problem.
But that is my problem, and I want to make sure that they're getting information. All right, then I'm going to do the show by myself.
If I would have finished my statement, then I would have been moved on from it.
Right.
You don't interrupt me when I'm talking.
Right.
But you interrupted me when I was talking.
All right, I'm gonna reset the show.
This morning.
I'm gonna reset the show, right?
I don't reset no show.
No, but I'm being very serious. I'm gonna reset the show because when we make statements,
Let me tell you something. Don't tell me about making no statement. This is the 5th time I've been on your show, and you told me that I made a statement that was not incorrect, and when I come back, it's correct. I'm telling you what the CDC works for.
Vincent,
they do not represent our best health.
1 second, Vincent.
Okay?
Let me.
No,
Vincent, please, Vincent. I'm going to hang the. All right.
What I'm talking about.
Listen.
I guarantee you this. Anybody that's listening to the show, they're going to listen to what the hell I'm saying because they know I would have done the research.
All right, listen.
I know what I'm talking about.
Listen.
People are going to listen to what you're saying.
Vincent, I'm going to hang up on you if you don't allow me to finish. Please, stop.
You know, come on.
Just stop for one. Okay, guys, I'm going to say it one last time. This is ridiculous. So now
what's ridiculous is I was having a conversation,
Kevin,
and of course you interrupted me.
No, Kevin.
And of course he did. I was trying
all
to
right,
make a
I'm gonna
point.
literally,
So
brother.
you
I love you,
interrupted. So
but
this is what you
we
get.
can't do this, right? So here's the question that I'm asking you. What information are you reading? Very simple question. You said the World Health Organization and the CDC are not credited organizations. So tell the listeners what information you're reading. That's the only question that I have. See, you can't discount these world-renowned organizations and then not provide where you're getting that information from. Okay, so that's my point. So now, Vincent, go ahead.
Okay, so the whole thing is, once again, we run into situations where there is undocumented statements and facts, and then based upon facts that have substantial evidence. And what that does is cause confusion. Confusion leads into the fear situation, giving people a sense of knowing what not to trust. And that's the whole issue that we're running into right now.
Yeah.
There have been people are going off of Google headlines by John Smith, and a couple of kids in their basement who aren't basing things on substantial evidence or facts. One of the big things about medicine is that medicine has an ability of proof, which gives people the sense of, yes, this is correct and right, which is basically called researching, studying it, looking at it, testing it, and giving it that stamp of approval. What we started with, and here is one of the other facts, is that the CDC is funded by Big Pharma, which isn't true. The problem that we have right now with the CDC is that it's funded by the government. President Obama gave additional billions of dollars to the CDC for the advanced treatment and cure of diseases, starting with the influenza, the N1A1, and Ebola. Now, what he had done when putting that in motion was giving us the ability is when a disease comes up in a foreign country, because what we're finding out is that this world is getting smaller and smaller. What happens in this country is just a matter of time before it happens in ours. So when Ebola hit, they took an advanced approach. They went there, they researched it, they studied it, they found the cure, and they stopped the spread of it coming to the United States. Donald Trump, going into office, wanting to fund his wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for, gutted the CDC and all that money for advanced research and development. That's the biggest reason that the coronavirus is here today. So when people tell you that it's funded by Big Pharma, that's not true. Right. We've got facts to prove that.
Look, I just think that we have to be very, very careful, right? If we're going to put a statement out that says don't trust any place that you're getting information from, then you have to then back that up by saying, and this is why, and this is where the real information is, and this is how I can prove that. But to make a blanket statement, I think it's very, very irresponsible to make a statement that says, don't trust the CDC, don't trust the World Health Organization, and then just leave that empty, right? And say, well, then so people say, well, okay, you don't want me to trust them. You don't want me to trust that. You say I don't have a government. You say I don't have a, and so now every man and woman for themselves. And I think that that's just, I think that the idea is to engage, inform, and empower. So the information that I'm reading from various sources say that, all of the things about this virus that are coming out, with regard to how infectious it is, with regard to how long you can be asymptomatic, with respect to the models that came out of Asia and out of Europe and that we're following, that all of those things are true. That they're true. And I think that when you put the other information out, right, is why you have those kids who were in Florida who are on spring break, who are on the beach, right? I mean, that's very concerning. And as a result of that, we now see an uptick in the emergency rooms of these young people. So to put out there and say, hey, listen, don't listen to what is being said. Just go out and live your best life. Without worrying about washing your hands, without worrying about social distancing, without worrying about those kinds of things, because the CDC and the World Health Organization are all in the pocket of Big Pharma and they're lying to you. That's dangerous.
True. What we're realizing is that our president and our commander-in-chief put America in great jeopardy with that act. And and we're dealing with the repercussions of it. Now, what we're coming to now is dealing with the false narratives and the fake news in the media. Now, of course, the president has been controlling the media and what people think about the virus, because he started out saying that it was a Democratic hoax. And people started believing it. Now we're getting into the misinformation and people relying on that misinformation, causing, people to be selfish, like people who are going around, spring break in Florida, like there will never be another spring break. And, what we're finding out now, in fact, as of 3:00 this morning, is that they believe that the youth were not as highly acceptable to the disease, and they're finding out now that that's not true. It is affecting everyone, and we need to get out of the fact or being in the state of fear and get into the state of caution. This isn't a situation where we're now fighting with the government, because we know that there are certain points that our president does not have our best interest, and I would be lying to you if I told you that he did. But what I'm saying to you is this: we need to, one, research it, be educated about it, be cautious about it, and not only that, give the proper information to everyone else, because we are all in this together. This isn't us against the government. This is us against a disease.
Well, you know what? So there, I'll partially disagree with you. I think that we are at war with the government. And I think that the government is aligned against our best interest, and they're aligned with the interests of corporations. I believe that what's happening now, and this is going to be part of that 7-minute video that I talked about. Listen, when we talk about our government, we have to be very clear what we're talking about, the makeup of the government. We talked about this on yesterday's show. The makeup of the government are lobbyists, hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists who have been floating around ideas and proposals for legislation that benefits big business, right? That benefits corporations. That is what our government is. So we're at war, and how do we know we're at war with it? We see the fallout in our communities. We see the fallout by the disparity in income, by the disparity in wealth. We see the fallout by the number of homeless people. We see the fallout by the number of people who don't have health care. So we are at war with our government being comprised of elected officials who are run by lobbyists who work for big corporations. So we are at war, Vincent.
Eric, I agree with that 100%. But here is the remedy to that statement. November, we make the change. If these people, we're looking at these people right now, center stage, and what's going on with America and what's going on in the world. If you realize that they are now siding with the pharmaceuticals and big companies, and they are more interested in protecting their wealth than your health, then November, make the change. That's the whole key to this. Now, yes, there is racial disparity. There are social injustices. There's a health and welfare of the United States that exceeds, and it rolls and it swings on a pendulum every year. It goes up, it goes down. However, when we stay into the fight of it, instead of sticking our heads in the sand, when we educate ourselves on what's true, rather than these quick, 30-second statements or news flashes, when we look at what they're doing for us, we make that decision to vote them out or keep them in. That's a big part of it, and that's the beauty of America. We're the country that everybody wants to get in because of that simple process. There is no dictatorship. And yes, again, I will say it again, the big problem that we have in America is that our government, a majority of the people in our government, are being backed and ran and controlled by corporations. When we let capitalism decide for our government, then we are no longer a democracy. We become into a totalitarian or a monarchy where he who has the gold makes the rules. We have that power to change. Let's make that change. But let's now focus on the most immediate threats to every last one of us. Now, keep in point, the coronavirus does affect the rich as well as the poor. The difference right now between the rich and the poor is that they have access and money to get the test, rather than the poor people waiting for these test kits to come out. The difference between the rich and poor is that they have access to some of the best doctors, where everybody else is going to a hospital and waiting in line, being infected by everyone. I just had a conversation with a woman in our church who works for the hospital, and she told us how truly bad it is. This is bad. And we can't get to the point of making it better when we continue to fight over old issues rather than the issue at hand. That's my point.
Listen, People are dying, right? Yesterday in a 24-hour period because of the testing, and we keep talking about the fact that we need to do more testing, and then as we do the testing, we'll realize that this thing is spread well beyond what we imagined it has already. And in a 24-hour period in New York, the number of folks infected with COVID-19 doubled, right? And they're now bringing in, medical ships to be able to prepare for the modeling that they see, right? So, what they, I forgot the doctor who was saying that all of the things that we're doing now, whatever you're doing now, you're doing it. You're already behind, right? I think that's how he put it. And
yes.
and we should be. Look, you know what I'm gonna do, because I'm a little upset. I'm gonna just play this, Vincent, and this is the video that I kept talking about. And when I come back, I'll recalibrate. I'll get my bearings, and we'll continue the show. But this is no joke. There no time for conspiracy theories. This is real in a lot of ways. Here's the video, guys.
Ideas that are lying around. Friedman, one of history's most extreme free market economists, was wrong about a whole lot, but he was right about that. In times of crisis, seemingly impossible ideas suddenly become possible. But whose ideas? Sensible, fair ones, designed to keep as many people as possible safe, secure, and healthy? Or predatory ideas, designed to further enrich the already unimaginably wealthy while leaving the most vulnerable further exposed? The world economy is seizing up in the face of cascading shocks.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
In the wake of the coronavirus crisis, stocks have stopped trading on Wall Street after a 7% drop.
This is a historical day, the biggest drop we've seen since that crash in 1987.
The drop was spurred by a growing oil price war as the market was already weakened by coronavirus fears.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
In the midst of this widespread panic, corporate lobbyists of all stripes are, of course, dusting off all the ideas they had lying around. Trump is pushing a suspension of the payroll tax, which could bankrupt Social Security, providing the excuse to cut it or privatize it completely. An idea that has been lying around for a very long time.
A worker at his or her option ought to be allowed to put some of their own money in a private savings account.
Lying around on both sides of the aisle.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid.
And then there are the ideas being floated to bail out some of the wealthiest and most polluting sectors in our economy.
We are working very closely with the cruise line industry, likewise with the airline industry. They're two great industries, and we'll be helping them through this patch.
Bailouts for fracking companies, not to mention cruise ships, airlines, and hotels, handouts which Trump could benefit from personally. Which is a big problem because the virus isn't the only crisis we face. There's also climate disruption, and these industries that are getting rescued with our money are the ones driving it. Trump has also been meeting with the private health insurers.
We're meeting with the top executives of the health insurance companies.
The very ones who have made sure that so many Americans can't afford the care they need. And what are the chances they don't have their hands out? It seems like the whole pandemic is getting outsourced.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for inviting us here today, along with our colleagues from Walmart and Walgreens and our partners at CVS. Normally, you view us as competitors, but today we're focused on a common competitor, and that's defeating the spread of the coronavirus.
The Fed's first move was to pump $1.5 trillion into the financial markets, with more undoubtedly on the way. But if you're a worker, especially a gig worker, there's a very good chance you're out of luck. If you do need to see a doctor for care, there's a good chance no one's going to help you pay if you aren't covered. And if you want to heed the public health warnings to stay home from work, there's also a chance that you won't get paid. Of course, you still need to pay your rent and all of your debts, medical, student credit card, mortgage. The results are predictable. Too many sick people have no choice but to go to work, which means more people contracting and spreading the virus. And without comprehensive bailouts for workers, we can expect more bankruptcies and more homelessness down the road. Look, we know this script. In 2008, the last time we had a global financial meltdown, the same kinds of bad ideas for no strings attached corporate bailouts carried the day. And regular people around the world paid the price. And even that was entirely predictable. 13 years ago, I wrote a book called The Shock Doctrine: The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. It described a brutal and recurring tactic by right-wing governments. After a shocking event, a war, coup, terrorist attack, market crash, or natural disaster, they exploit the public's disorientation, suspend democracy, push through radical free market policies that enrich the 1% at the expense of the poor and middle class. But here is what my research has taught me. Shocks and crises don't always go the shock doctrine path. In fact, it's possible for crisis to catalyze a kind of evolutionary leap. Think of the 1930s, when the Great Depression led to the New Deal.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
In the United States and elsewhere, governments began to weave a social safety net, so that the next time there was a crash, there would be programs like Social Security to catch people.
The right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care, and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health.
Look, we know what Trump's plan is. A pandemic shock doctrine featuring all the most dangerous ideas lying around. From privatizing Social Security, to locking down borders, to caging even more migrants. Hell, he might even try canceling elections. But the end of this story hasn't been written yet. It is an election year, and social movements and insurgent politicians are already mobilized. And like in the 1930s, we have a whole bunch of other ideas lying around.
Do we believe that everybody should be entitled as a right to health care?
Yeah. We will not stop organizing and fighting until all unhoused folks who want shelter have shelter. Canceling student debt.
It makes so much sense that if you're sick, that you should not be penalized where you don't have an income.
Many of these ideas were dismissed as too radical just a week ago. Now they're starting to seem like the only reasonable path to get out of this crisis and prevent future ones.
Now, here's something that helps explain the difference between the testing situation in South Korea and the U.S. The South Korea, like European countries and Canada, has universal single-payer insurance, and that means that it's easier to mobilize, and also people know what to do. There is pretty much one answer for how to get testing. The U.S. is a patchwork of countless different systems, and so you can't say, here's exactly the steps that every American should take in order to get tested.
And with Washington suddenly in the giant stimulus business, this is precisely the time for the stimulus that many of us have been talking about for years.
Today is the day that we truly embark on a comprehensive agenda of economic, social, and racial justice in the United States of America.
It's called the Green New Deal. Instead of rescuing the dirty industries of the last century, we should be boosting the clean ones that will lead us into safety in the coming century. If there is one thing history teaches us, it's that moments of shock are profoundly volatile. We either lose a whole lot of ground, get fleeced by elites, and pay the price for decades, or we win progressive victories that seemed impossible just a few weeks earlier. This is no time to lose our nerve. The future will be determined by whoever is willing to fight harder for the ideas they have lying around.
So, welcome back. I think, Vincent, that video encapsulates where we are right now. So when you said that, we're not in at war with government, I'm saying to you, I believe that we really are. I believe that we have that, and there's a distraction, right? But we've always been at war with our government, and now there's a distraction. And though we're sitting and trying to fight this pandemic, you have special interest groups who are looking to seize the moment, right? Take advantage of the misinformed, take advantage of those who are acting irrationally out of fear, to put into place policies that will have a profound impact on our lives, negative impact on our lives for decades to come. Hold on, we got a caller coming in.
Callers coming in. Let me make myself
caller.
clear.
Go ahead.
No, let's call her.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Where we are right now, like I said last week before last, it's the environmentalism versus capitalism, and the language of Jim Crow is being spoken by both the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're throwing all of these quick fixes out here. And the most dangerous thing about this time right now is that we have a unchecked power in the White House. And when they put that man on trial, and he was found not guilty, it gave him untold power. He cannot be checked right now. But people, and yesterday I got told I was, being negative because I had the foresight to see what was going on and trying to prevent, from even fall victim myself with this thing. But we need a foresight here because there's much more on the table than just this virus. And I'm not leading into any conspiracy theories. You are absolutely right. We have to be careful of our messaging and with this thing because he got all the cards on the table and he's looking for the big haul in. And if we don't push back as a people with this, man, you called it last year. It was like music to my ears when you said we have a social disease. Yeah. And now that the narrative is, people want to move away from that and say physical distancing. No, we need to address this social disease that we're in and been in for a long time of not facing our true facts of what's going on. And so if we don't recognize, man, that video was powerful and it laid it all out with how these guys are coming together and they want it all.
Hey, Mike, you know what it is?
They don't want half of it.
Mike,
man,
you know what it is, man? It's like right in the middle of this thing, somebody threw a smoke bomb to try to distract us, right? And while we're focusing over here, man, like you said, it's the big. They're backing up a Brinks truck, man, and getting ready to load it all up in there, and we are positioned to be had, to be taken. When we look all the way down the line at who's in place to protect us, and this is what I've been saying. From the local level all the way to the state level, then you go to the national level with our U.S. Senator and what are they saying? They're not saying anything. They're getting ready to rob us blind. And you know what they're doing? They're throwing out this idea of $1,000, right? That is the biggest con. They're saying, we're going to give y'all something. And then I'm watching Mike. I'm watching people on Facebook posting things like, "Oh, I'm gonna invest in real estate with the $1,000 I'm gonna get."
Those are the main people who talk about, "Oh yeah, you know, this guy's always talking about free stuff." No, we're not. Those are the main people talking about they're gonna be invested in real estate, and they're gonna be broke without a damn shoe on their foot. When this joker finish with them.
I agree. And the best thing about that video is a lot of those topics is what we've been saying, or what I've been saying just about every time that I'm on this show. Now, let me make my point clear that no, we are, and the reason I say we are not at war with our government is because every November we change the course of power without firing one shot. That's not a war. That's democracy.
No, but you know what, but Vincent, but here's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Can I say something before you hold that thought?
Go ahead, Mike.
Let me say something to the brother. You haven't been noticing that they suspending shit. The elections, like the primaries. Oh no, we can't. These are states now. This is there's a difference between the federal and the state. Now you have the state saying no, we can't bring people together. We got to social distance you. You can't have an election. You ain't see that right. You at war, brother.
Listen, my friend, here is the best thing that Alexander Hamilton has ever did for our country. Put in fail-safes. If we do not accomplish it in this way, we accomplish it in another way. The same fail-safe that we have to our traditional voting. Do you know that right now in place there is a app that you can, at any time the government can download, and you can actually vote off of that? They haven't released it because they don't trust the internet.
Listen, Vincent, my point to you is this.
Hold on, let me finish. Give me 30 seconds. So if we cannot physically, because of social disease, vote, then there are things in place that will allow us to vote electronically.
Right, Vincent.
But go ahead.
Vincent, what I'm saying to you is this, right? There's a psychological war. There's a physical war. You're ignoring the psychological war that this government has played on us or has enacted on us. So when I talk about the social diseases, the socially transmitted diseases that exist within our community, it is a direct result of the war that America has waged on us. And to say that we're not at war with them, and to look in our communities, I would have to ask you, why do you think folks are walking around like zombies? Do you think that that's because they want to walk around like zombies?
Can I answer that? Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
The sociological war, which Eric talks about. The factories of death. They've been conditioned to do this through the educational system. That's why you haven't heard a peep out of an educational director or whoever he got it. Whatever the lady name is, you ain't heard a peep out of her. Yeah, schools are shut down. She ain't giving no direction. So yeah, people gonna walk around like zombies because the book you guys did. You know what I mean? How to make a slave.
Let me take this call, Mike. Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Post it to me, Eric.
1 second, caller.
Here's the big thing.
I'm gonna hang up and listen.
All right, real quick, Vincent. You got another caller.
Now,
Vincent, really
here's
quick.
the thing, Eric.
Vincent. Really quickly, we have another caller. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi, this is Laurie Thomas, and I understand you want to talk about coronavirus.
Laurie Thomas, thank you for calling. So Laurie Thomas is the author of
No More Measles.
No More Measles. So Laurie, one of the things that we were talking about, and I wanted to get somebody who could give us some additional insight, is where, firstly, should we be getting our information? Well, give your bona fides before we start, and then I'll ask you the questions.
Okay, I have been editing medical textbooks and medical journals for a living since the late 1980s. I have worked for veterinary journals. I've worked for textbook publishers. I've worked for journal publishers. I've written the documents that pharmaceutical companies submit to the FDA to try to get approval for their products. I mean, you name it. I've, any aspect of medical writing, medical publishing, I've done it for a living for 30 years. So that's my bona fides, I guess.
Okay. So now when we're having a conversation and we're trying to educate people about coronavirus, where should they be getting their information?
They should be getting their information from the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization.
Okay, so we had one of my co-hosts on, and I wish he was on the show now, who said that we ought not be trusting the Center of Disease Control or the World Health Organization in terms of getting our information because of the relationship that they have with Big Pharma and other companies.
I have met people who work for the World Health Organization and for the CDC. I've people from World Health Organization in particular reviewed my book No More Measles before it went to press. And the people who work at these public health organizations don't give a crap about pharma. They don't care whether a pharmaceutical company is going to make money or not. They don't care.
Okay. So can you explain to the listener, I think you'll do a much better job than I did, what is coronavirus?
Okay. Well, first of all, what is a virus?
Okay.
A virus is not a living thing like a bacteria or a plant or an animal or something like that. Viruses are not technically alive. They are objects that have been made by a living cell. And each the infectious particle of a virus is called a virion. So each virion is a particle, and it's made up of some sort of genetic material. In the case of coronavirus, it's a single strand of RNA, which is ribonucleic acid. Some like the smallpox virus was a double strand of DNA, like we have in our own cells. But the genes in the coronavirus are RNA, and this is important because DNA contain information. They contain information. And the information in the virus is how to make new copies of that virus. So living cells make these viruses, and then the viruses get loose in the environment. They can be picked up by other cells. Then those other cells will make new copies of the virus, and it's just like a computer virus. That's how it multiplies. So the coronavirus is called a coronavirus because of how it looks under an electron microscope. It's got these spiky things that make it look like the things on a crown. Mm-hmm. That's why it's called a coronavirus, just because it looks like a crown when you look at it under the microscope or an electron microscope. Yes, it's really high magnification. So I mean, other viruses have a different appearance. The coronaviruses look like that. Now, there's a bunch of different coronaviruses. Some of them cause a syndrome very similar to the common cold in human beings. This one's different because it just jumped over from a different species, probably bats, and it may have come by way of a pangolin, which is like an anteater or something. So the moral of that story is don't touch wild animals, especially not bats, because bats are mammals. They live in big colonies close together. They carry all sorts of nasty viruses. Don't touch bats. So this coronavirus, it's new in human beings. And that's why it's so dangerous. When a lot of viruses can't really make it from one species to another because they need to have a particular key that unlocks the cell so that they can get in. And only the viruses that can jimmy our locks and get into our cells can infect us.
So it has to mutate to the host.
Correct. Now the thing is, for you to get a case of a viral infection, or any infection really, that infectious agent, whether it's bacteria, whether it's a virus or whatever, you have to have a big enough dose of that infectious agent delivered to susceptible tissue. So if you have a little teeny, like one coronavirus particle, it may or may not go on to cause an infection in you. Your body may recognize what's going on and kill it off before there's a problem. But if you've got a dose of 1,000 coronavirus particles, then it's got a bigger chance that it's going to make you sick. So the chances of you getting sick depends on all sorts of things, including how virulent that, how good that germ is at infecting you, and how big of a,
so
and also where in the body it got.
So, doctor, in terms of the size of the coronavirus, how many viruses have they found in one droplet?
Oh, I'm not a doctor, and I can't answer that question of how many are in a droplet. It would depend on how severe the person's infection is. So, okay. But just in general, just so you know that there's a lot of things that affect whether a particular person gets sick. And also, if you've had a similar coronavirus infection, if you had a common cold last year that was caused by a coronavirus, not this one, but a different one. If you had a similar infection before, your body has a head start in fighting it, so you might not get as sick. So there's lots of things so there's a lot of noise in this system. There's a lot of things that can go one way or the other. There's a lot of random chance involved. But the thing you got to worry about is trying to keep those infectious particles from getting onto your respiratory tract. And the way you do that is by avoiding people who are sick and by washing your hands. Because the coronavirus particle, the way it's put together, it's basically the set of genes wrapped up in this oily bubble with protein spikes sticking out on the outside. And if you wash your hands with soap and water, that soap will break apart that bubble, and the whole structure will collapse, and it's no longer infectious. So wash your hands with soap and water. Alcohol will also work. It's not as good as soap and water, but it'll do in a pinch. But wash your hands often with soap and water, and wash them really well. Really scrub your hands.
All right.
So the coronavirus is now going into a mutated version of what they're now beginning to call superviruses?
Viruses mutate all the time. And especially a virus that has a single strand of RNA as its genetic material is much less stable genetically.
Right.
So that's why the flu virus, the influenza virus, also has a single strand of RNA for its genetic material. That's why it mutates so fast. Now, sometimes how fast a virus mutates two things. Number one is whether it has a single strand of RNA, or if it has a double strand of DNA, it can use your cell's own proofreading equipment to correct errors of its own. Well, no,
to unlock
virus. That's different. Right. That's different. Okay. I don't want to get too complicated here. But if it's got a double strand of DNA, it's got a backup so it can correct its own proofreading. It can use your body's own proofreading mechanisms to reduce mutations. But single strand of RNA, there's no backup, so it can mutate pretty fast. So the question is, are the mutations helpful or harmful to the virus itself? So there are some RNA viruses that are remarkably stable from year to year because any mistakes there's really only one way for them to do their thing correctly. So if they don't, if they have mutations, then they don't succeed as that virus. So the question of whether the coronavirus is going to mutate, well, of course it's going to mutate. Will it be more harmful? time will tell. But in the meantime, we just have to do what we can to stop the spread of this virus.
So one of the things that is creating a problem here is a lack of trust, right? So you have the president who called all media fake news. You have conspiracy theories around vaccinations, or maybe they're not conspiracy theories, but there's mistrust around vaccinations. Who's just trying to get money, and so with all of that going on, and then folks trying to just figure it out, it becomes very, very complicated. And I think that is a part of why, you had those kids who were enjoying spring break, right, in the middle of this, because somewhere in the back of their head, they're saying, this isn't, this is blown out of proportion.
Well, the young kids on spring break, that's a different dynamic, because one of the things that young men do, or when boys are becoming men, one of the ways that they express their willingness and readiness to join the breeding population is to take ridiculous risks. So, I mean, that's why young men do crazy things. They're expressing, "Hey, I'm ready to join the breeding population." And women, of course, just by joining the breeding population, they're taking great risks. So the fact that they would exactly. So the fact that they went on spring break in the face of an epidemic that has a low mortality rate in their risk group, not surprising. Not surprising at all. I mean, it's biological. You can't really get too angry at them. I mean, we were young ones too.
Yeah. So listen,
but you realize that they come home and now infected, they become the carriers to people who are more susceptible to death because of it.
Well, they've got to stay away from their parents and their grandparents. Yeah. After anybody who has been exposed to this illness, anybody who's been in crowds, or anybody who thinks they're sick, they've got to stay away from their grandparents, or their parents and their grandparents. I mean, you really have to protect the older people, because they're the ones who are most at risk.
So listen, guys, we're on the phone with author Lori Endicott Thomas. She's the author of No More Measles, and she's providing very helpful information about what's going on. Hey, Diane, are you still there? Are there
yes, sir, I'm here.
Are there any questions or comments in the feed? Folks, please feel free to call in if you have any questions. But, the idea is to be able to get truthful and honest information so that we know how to guide our lives in this crisis. The call-in number is 908-481-5499.
Okay, so Linda, I do have a question for you. In fact, I was just doing, in the process of doing a video in regards to this, because I'm in the insurance business, and I was just reading an old article that was done in Underwriter in regards to measles and the role that it plays in the P&C industry, and how they had the measles outbreak in Brooklyn in the Orthodox community, and how they were trying to handle that public health emergency. Do you think that was just a preface, or what can actually happen throughout the entire state and the country, and how we need to really, what would you say, reduce our movement throughout the community to keep passing it on from the next person to the next person? Because I know the CDC at that time said they had literally over 500 individual cases in that community in the month of April of 2019.
I don't know if she's still on the line. Lori, are you still there?
Yeah. Okay. The problem that you had with the measles is perhaps the most contagious disease known to science. Of the serious diseases. I mean, it's extremely contagious. So the basic reproduction rate of a disease, sometimes called the R naught, R with a subscript 0, is for smallpox, I think, was about 2 or 3. For measles, it's 18. In order to catch smallpox from somebody, you had to be pretty up close and personal. You had to be within a few feet of them for an extended period of time. Because remember, you had to get enough of an infectious dose. And so that people are breathing out the virus particles when they had smallpox. But smallpox didn't make you cough. Mm-hmm. So if the reason that measles is so contagious is because it is a respiratory infection that makes you cough. So every time you cough, you produce these clouds of droplets with these infectious particles in it. Okay. And then, so the other thing is, even though it's an enveloped virus, it's got the oily membrane like I talked about before. Mm-hmm. It's pretty tough. It can stay infectious for a few hours. So if you have a case of the measles, and that person with the measles is in the waiting room in the doctor's office, and this happened to this one doctor, I will not mention his name, who is one of these people who says that you should, not follow the regular vaccination schedule, and he was urging his patients to avoid or delay certain vaccinations. Well, there was an outbreak of measles in his office. So this child came in after a trip abroad, had a really bad fever and a rash, and he didn't even recognize it as measles. And that case led to at least 11 other cases of measles. So the problem with measles is at first it looks and feels like a common cold, and that's why this coronavirus epidemic is terrifying the public health officials, because a lot of people who are carrying it just seem to have a common cold, or they might not even have symptoms at all, but they could still be shedding virus.
So
now, why Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Now, why measles in particular is so bad is, as I said, it starts off as a respiratory infection, but then it infects your immune cells. It infects the cells that are supposed to fight infection. And in particular, it wipes out a particular kind of cell called the B memory cells. So having a case of measles is like wiping out the hard drive of your immune system, and lose your immunity to all these other things that you'd had or been vaccinated against in the past. So that's why that's why the public health people go to great lengths to contain measles outbreaks. And why if we vaccinate enough people in poor countries, we will stop having measles. It'll go extinct, and we won't have any more measles at all, which is why I wrote my book, No More Measles.
So what are your thoughts on families who are still thinking that they should not vaccinate their children, or they're doing delayed vaccinations, particularly in this time right now when people are getting infected? Is that being pushed more, or are they are medical health advocates stressing to hold off on the vaccinations, or should they be going forward to their doctors and doing these things?
Well, the doctors are going to be busy with the coronavirus. And if somebody were to delay the vaccination because they don't want their kid to catch coronavirus and pass it to grandma during this outbreak, I understand that. But in general, the anti-vaccination movement consists of two portions. There are the people who go to great lengths to do documentaries and websites and all this kind of stuff to spread anti-vaccination messages. Those are the anti-vaccination zealots, shall I say. Then there are the people who are merely vaccine hesitant. They don't know whom to trust. I have enormous sympathy for them because they don't know whom to trust, and they're worried about taking care of their kids. I want to educate them. I don't want to insult them in any way. But these anti-vaccination zealots, the people who are spreading this anti-vaccination misinformation, generally have something else to sell. Either they are selling faith healing and they want you to put money in the collection plate, and they want to take the place of they want faith healing to take the place of modern medicine, which I think is a mistake. Or they have some sort of alternative medicine that they're selling, whether they're naturopaths or some chiropractors are very important in the anti-vaccination movement. They don't believe in germ theory of disease. The traditional chiropractors did not believe in germ theory of disease. So a bunch of chiropractors are still, not all, but a bunch of them are still leading this anti-vaccination movement. A lot of it is also coming from people who are selling some sort of alternative medical products. And these people, they've got something to sell, and they want to take the place of your doctor. And you shouldn't trust them. I mean, you may not trust Big Pharma, but at least Big Pharma has the FDA breathing down their necks. These alternative medicine people, nobody is controlling them. I mean, they're doing and saying all sorts of things.
So
if you wanted to sell a medicinal product, you have to, every single statement in it has to be backed up by scientific evidence. But these people who are selling alternative medicine, they can say whatever pops into their heads.
So I was listening to NPR radio the other day, and they were discussing in regards to our pharmaceutical, our drugs, and a lot of the drugs that may possibly not be available because most of the drugs, or many of them, are being produced in China. Is that actually true? That the production of them are being, and then they were talking like, for instance, Cialis or something like that. I can't think how you pronounce it. Cialis, yes. Cialis is being produced in China and stuff like that. Do you think, with your research and everything, your editing that over the years, do you think that this is an opportunity to bring back pharmaceutical manufacturing here into the United States, so we're not in the situation that we're waiting for we're dependent on other countries? Because I did also hear that some pharmaceutical companies were asked, and they said it would take them at least 18 to 24 months to get up and running again.
Yes.
Well, it used to be that we produced a lot of pharmaceuticals in Puerto Rico. And I mean, there was a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturing in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, and a lot of the production of a lot of things, including vitamins and whatnot, has gone overseas. And there's a lot of antibiotic production being done in India. And I don't have statistics on how much is being produced in India and how much is being produced in China. Mm-hmm. But one of the concerns that they have about the way that there's some problems with oversight of antibiotic production in India, in that there's antibiotic tainted waste going into the sewer system where it's interacting with human pathogens. So it's promoting diseases. It's promoting antibiotic resistance in bacteria, which is it's disturbing, and it's disturbing on a global. I mean, it's a threat to public health worldwide because we're all just a plane ride away.
So one second. My last question is, based on the information you know and the research and everything that you've been reading, medical journals and editors, what can people do to support CDC and also push back to politicians to get what we need here in the United States and at a faster pace under the circumstances that we're under now?
Great question.
Okay, the important thing to realize is who controls the purse strings for the federal government, and that is mainly the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. All spending bills must originate in the House of Representatives according to the Constitution. And there are every congressional district has a congressperson. So I live in District 11. That's Mikey Sherrill. So people who find out who your member of Congress is,
okay,
and call that person and say, I want you to spend more money on the CDC.
Okay.
So let me recap. First, the biggest thing is that those who are now pushing the anti-vaccination movement are peddling fear and fiction so that they can now sell you a product to do what they're claiming to do is the exact as a vaccination.
Right. Now, people do things. Sometimes they want money, and sometimes they want prestige. But they want money and prestige that they don't deserve. So if I were to go online and say, well, I can cure Lou Gehrig disease or something, I can't. I cannot. But if I wanted to make people think I could so that they would think I was really cool, that would be trying to get prestige, but it would be prestige that I don't deserve. So a lot of people want prestige that they don't deserve. And a lot of people want money, but without giving anybody else anything of value in exchange.
So the chiropractic movement of anti-vaccination would be for the prestige. The other movement would be for the money of the product that they want to sell you. But either way, they're looking to deter you from what's been proven.
A lot of chiropractors and naturopaths want to take the place of your pediatrician or family doctor, and they can't. So as long as you have to keep taking your child in for their routine vaccinations, that means that you're going to have to be going into your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, whatever. That's a lot of visits. And a lot of people aren't going to say, well, I'm going to take them to a chiropractor as well. If the chiropractor can persuade you that they can take the place of your pediatrician, then they'll get all those well-child visits. That's what some of them want. I'm not saying all chiropractors are this way. Don't get me wrong. Right. There's a fair number of them that want to capture that business, and they don't. That's outside the scope of their practice. That's not. They're not licensed to do. They're not trained to do it. They're not licensed to do it. But a lot of them want to capture that business because they want the money.
Right.
And this is not right.
And in your expert opinion, because to me, you do qualify as an expert on it, could you express the victories that the CDC has had over diseases during the last 40 years, 50 years? No, actually, since what? Smallpox?
Well, let me start with why the CDC was created to begin with. We used to have serious problems with malaria in the United States. When was the last time you heard of anybody getting malaria in the United States? Exactly. After we had a bad outbreak of
smallpox
in, I think, 1949 or thereabouts.
Yes.
And then they said, okay, let's get serious. Let's eliminate smallpox from the United States as a whole. And then after in the I forget exactly what year, but I talk about it in No More Measles. The Soviet Union was they had been boycotting the UN for a while. Then they got back in, and their representative to the World Health Organization said, we have to keep vaccinating people against smallpox in the Soviet Union because cases keep getting brought in by from the neighboring countries. So if we could eradicate smallpox worldwide, then none of us will have to vaccinate anybody against it. So they said let's eradicate smallpox once and for all. And the representative from Cuba said, sure, we'll help. We've got all these Cuban doctors, and we'll donate smallpox vaccine to this. We're on board. So the United States got on board as well, and so the World Health Organization worked to eradicate smallpox worldwide. So that's the accomplishments of the CDC and the World Health Organization. So in contrast, I mean, these naturopaths and so forth, they claim they have all these powers. Really, do they have a track record that stands up against that? Really?
No, they don't. Now, President Obama in his act, starting with the N1 flu stand, yes, leading up to H1N1, leading up to Ebola, his putting together that task force to attack it on a global level. How has that helped humanity and society as a whole?
Well, we need to do it. We need it desperately. And the thing is, when you have a program like that, it's hard to evaluate its accomplishments on a year-to-year basis because the epidemics are something that break out. An epidemic is, by its very nature, limited in time. So if it's something that is limited in the space of time, like the big flu epidemic that occurred at the end of World War I, you needed to go to great lengths to deal with that. But it appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Actually, it appeared out of Kansas, but we won't go there.
For the Jayhawkers who are listening.
Yeah, it has nothing. With all due respect to Kansas, it wasn't their fault really. It's because there was a big military base there. So who knows how it got to Kansas? But that's just where we first noticed it. And it was affecting swine and human beings. So it was, affecting pigs. So because it's these, that's why they called it the swine flu in later years. Yeah. So how well do you evaluate the performance of something that is supposed to deal with rare crises That's hard to evaluate. But you have to have it. You have to have it lying ready in wait for a crisis to break out.
Right. So it's like insurance. It's best to have it, to be prepared for it, and not need it, than to need it and not have it.
Right. Right. I mean, it's like you have services to evacuate people from. If Pompeii had services to evacuate people in cases of the volcano going on, next years you don't need it. 79 AD, oops, you needed it. So
how on a world level, when President Trump gutted the CDC's funding for advanced research and development to attack these epidemics, to keep them from becoming pandemics, how has that? What's the magnitude of that action?
In terms of numbers of deaths, it's hard to calculate. But I think it was a terrifically bad idea. But I think that even if you tried to put an estimate on it, it would always be with error bars. So I can't give you a number.
Right.
I think it was a terrifically bad idea. I mean, is that good enough of an answer?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Look, I want to say this. I love you.
Well, listen, I got an opportunity to be on a show yesterday, and had a great time. Got a great amount of information from Lori, and thought that she certainly, given the paranoia, the confusion, the lack of information that people have, the fear that it would be helpful to have her come on and to talk a little bit about this. I read a little bit of stuff that's in the thread, and it's concerning to me when you have people who don't have the data, right? And they don't have the background, and they've not spent any significant time at all researching any of this, and they're using their platforms to stoke additional fear. I'm saying go get information. And I'm not saying always agree with me, right? You may disagree with me on certain things, but I'm saying just point me to where you're getting your information so that we can discuss that data. But when, it's anecdotal, or when it's feeling based and there is nothing else attached to it, I'm simply saying to all of you guys, be very, very careful. Be very careful. Because folks who don't know, who are trying to find out, who are impressionable, may take the information you have and spread it like the spreading now.
Eric, that makes a lot of sense. Lori, I got a couple more questions. As a business owner, I know that the Small Business Administration is giving out, not small business, FEMA is setting aside funding, financial assistance for small business owners. My question to you is, I have sent out emails to my clients to let them know that my business is still up and running. It may be mobile. I'm not accepting customers in office, but it's still up and going. What do you suggest, or what have you seen for what you've been researching, that employers should be sending out to the employees? Because I've had a couple of clients that were very concerned about they couldn't work from home. As to what do they tell their employees that can't work from home? How do they keep that at a minimum of frustration for the employee and the employer?
That's a really hard question. It's going to depend on all sorts of things. The company that I do a lot of work for, because I'm a freelancer and I have a bunch of people that I do work for, I've been working from home for years. So when they said, we're closing the office, and how will this affect me? I will not even notice any difference. But for a lot of people who can work from home, then for them, the challenge will be to avoid distraction from their children and to keep their cat from leaping onto their laptop while they're trying to get their work done. Which is, this is one of the occupational hazards of people like me who, occasionally foster a feral cat and work from home. So, for those of us, it's no big deal. But for people who work, say, in the service industry, people who or cut hair or something like this, these people are really going to be in big trouble. And I think that we're going to need to find some way to support them, because a lot of these people, they could lose their homes, or they could end up homeless because of this. So we're really going to have to help them.
That's true. You also talked about the importance of washing your hands with soap and water. While antibacterial, the what do you call it? The hand sanitizer is good, but soap and water is better. What is the active agent that's in soap that makes it so much better to use the soap and water as opposed to just sanitizing?
Well, the active agent in soap is free fatty acids. Do you want a chemistry explanation?
No.
The active ingredient in soap is soap.
But it's not the same fatty acid that I have in my behind, not that type of fatty acid.
Soap, a lot of soap and some detergents and so forth, the molecule that's involved is a long hydrocarbon string which is attracted to fat, but it's got a carboxylic acid group on the other end, which is very attracted to water. So you've got one side of it attracted to water, the other side is attracted to fatty things, and that's why soap cuts grease.
Gotcha.
It breaks it apart.
Gotcha. Right. Okay, so how can people find your book? And give us the name of the book again, and how we can find it, and how people can purchase your book on No More Measles.
The book is titled No More Measles, and you can buy it through New Jersey Revolution Radio. I'm allowing them to sell the book as a fundraiser. If you want to get a print version of it, you'll have to go to Amazon.com.
All right, and I want to get a copy.
Do you
of
have
that.
a Facebook page?
Oh yes, I have several.
A public one where people can.
No More Measles. There's one for No More.
Okay.
And I have nomeasles.com is my website, which I have to update. I've been so frantic with
work,
taking care of people who need taken care of, and all that lately. So.
Gotcha. You are a wealth of information. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Again, I love you.
So, Lori, last couple of questions for you. So, as they're looking, and we talked about, I said the report that came in, there were a couple of reports that came in while we were on air last night. One was that in over a 24-hour period, the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in New York had doubled. That's one. The second thing that I was reading as we were talking last night was they had already talked about how the virus lives on surfaces. They were talking about plastic and cardboard as well as stainless steel. But then the article talked about clothing and polyester versus cotton, saying that it can live longer on polyester as opposed to breathable fabrics like cotton. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, wash your clothes.
And in terms of the doubling of the number in New York in a 24-hour period.
Again, this is a math nerd question, because how many people have they been testing? How have they been choosing the people they've been testing? You'd expect it if you're going to be if you're testing more people, you're going to be getting more positive results just because you're testing more people. If you're getting pickier about whom you test, positive results just because of how you're choosing the people you test.
So the thing is, if they're testing for the truth or testing for results.
anytime in science you're trying to get data, and you get data by interacting with reality in some way. And however you interact with reality is going to affect what you observe.
Okay.
So if you, I mean, that's what makes it really hard. So I wouldn't get too excited about the absolute numbers. If you're worried about that, you talk to an epidemiologist. I mean, I know I'm not an epidemiologist myself, but I took some of the same math courses they did. So it's I mean, just because they're finding more cases, we already know it's there. So it's a question of, are they finding more of the cases that are there, or is it spreading that fast? I don't know. Just wash your hands, stay home.
So when you heard the news and they reported it either last night or this morning that no new cases this is the first day, no new cases in China.
That's fantastic news. Because you know that they are, looking very hard for those cases, and you know that they're testing everybody who has a reasonable case definition.
Okay. Excellent. Well, listen, I want to thank you again for taking the time. Hey, guys, go and
wash.
Yeah. After you wash your hands and then wash them again, and then wash them a third time. Please go and search out Lori's book, No More Measles. Download it, purchase it. Let's show her some support.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lori, thank you for calling.
And if you buy it through New Jersey Revolution Radio, you support them.
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's go through New Jersey Revolution Radio and let's purchase it there.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we'll be right back after these commercials, and then we'll wrap this up. Lori, thanks a lot. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, so.
Well, I don't know why my
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
It's time to turn up the heat in your house or apartment. So here are some fire safety tips from Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency to keep you warm and safe this winter. Don't overload your electrical outlets. Keep flammable items away from fireplaces and space heaters. And put a fresh battery in your smoke detector. Turn to Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency for your home and renter's insurance, or bundle it with your auto insurance and save. Call 908-686-4609 or visit dlminsurance.com today.
BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
So wait a minute. So listen. So we're back. So I want to thank Lori again, and I'm going to ask her throughout this thing if she would be interested in being a contributor. We need those kinds of people to contribute to this show to make sure that we're providing factual information to people. Now,
we need to talk about some local stuff.
Oh, go ahead, Diane. Uh-oh.
So on the local side, Quiet Vincent, on the local side in the city of Newark, people need to know that there is a curfew in place, 8 p.m. curfew for everyone. All non-essential businesses need to be closed by 8 p.m. Some of them, such as what I'm reading, is all 9 essentials will be closed 8 p.m. Wednesday and not to reopen until April 1st.
Diane, we got to tell people that the hair salon is not essential.
Okay, well, let me tell you what he just said.
All right. No, because I'm saying, because some women believe that is essential.
Calm down, because I'm about to tell you. Non-essential businesses include salons and retail stores.
Oh.
The other businesses that remain open in the city of Newark: supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations, and they can only be patronized after 8 if there's an emergency. Laundromats, hotels, banks, auto mechanics, wireless cell phone and retail stores can also remain open until 8 p.m. Restaurants must be closed by 8 p.m. and they can reopen on a daily basis. However, restaurants may only deliver and cannot have customers sitting inside. So remember yesterday when I was coming through around in your area, Eric, and I ordered food and he was like, "Oh, you're not staying inside?" I was like, "Sit in the car," because that was just common sense to me. There were people hanging out in the restaurant, but I was like, "No, I'm ordering. I'll wait. I'll come back and get it, and I'll leave." Governor Murphy stated for the rest of the state that there is an 8 p.m. curfew for the entire state of New Jersey. And he's ordered all malls to be closed this week. Other businesses, including bowling alleys, zoos, aquariums, arcades, fairs, are closed throughout New Jersey. So that's just so people know on the local level, Newark, and for the state of New Jersey, that we're on in a strict 8 p.m. curfew. Also, Baraka citywide sent out a directive to know it will be reevaluated in the next 2 weeks on April 1st to determine restrictions and how they will continue. There are additional service regards to public, private, parochial schools remain closed indefinitely throughout the state due to the governor's mandate. So public, private, and parochial schools stay closed until the governor says so. Hard packets for schoolwork will be available for kids. Students' breakfast and lunch distribution in Newark will happen. I'll place this link on my page. They have a link on all the schools where the kids can pick up lunch and breakfasts. Also, there is the seniors who are most vulnerable. They dedicated time for them to shop right on Springfield Avenue between 6 and 8:30 and on Fridays. But I think they're going to have to revamp that because this morning there was a little confusion as to what's going on, even though today's not Friday. Or is it? I'm so lost. What's today?
Today is Thursday.
Okay,
I did read something about they were scheduled to be there at 6:30. ShopRite didn't open until 6:50.
Right. So there was some confusion, and they're going to work on that. Immunizations, because I asked Lori about that. Immunizations services in Newark will be reduced to Tuesdays and Thursdays only from 9 to 4. The WIC office is open by appointment only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from 9 to 4. No walk-ins available. So basically, if you need to go to a government agency, most government offices are closed to the public. You need to call because the employees are still, some skeleton crews are still working to schedule an in-person appointment if you must go in. But I say don't go in if you can do it online. If you just need to call to confirm information, that's one thing. But keep from having to go in. And of course, our postal workers, our medical workers, our healthcare workers are out there working, and our drivers are still out there delivering stuff. So be mindful. If you don't have to go out, don't interact with people. That's the best thing to do.
We got a call.
Go ahead.
Caller, go.
Guys, what's up? It's Darren. How y'all doing?
What's going on, Darren Martin?
Hey, Darren.
Darren.
What's up?
What's on the home front in the union? What are you guys telling your union workers, that are your service providers? What's happening?
Yeah, I've been conference called out. I'm so proud of conference called. I'll be on another one 12:30 with our international union. So basically the biggest problem is what we're having is what else? Is a shortage of supply. Even for our frontline workers at the hospitals, the nursing homes, our prison facilities, our jails, there's no supplies. not even mask, which is scary. So the CDC put out this morning that while we're waiting for masks to come, that people should use scarves or bandanas.
That was exactly what I was about to say.
Which is shocking. And they realize that it's not sufficient and it's not safe. Now, a lot of people don't know, but they keep putting these masks on that they buy from stores, Home Depot, or whatever. That makes it worse. You should not be putting on a mask if you have not tested positive, because those masks, what they do is you trap, if you are somehow in the presence of somebody who has coronavirus, that virus gets trapped inside of the mask. You have to have what's called a N, like Nancy, 95 mask. That's the real mask. You got to get tested for that and everything. It's a whole process you got to go through. It's a heavier mask. In fact, you can't even wear the real mask for a long period of time because you just can't stand it because it's heavy, it's thick. So people need to stop wearing those other masks and they cut the grass with, etc., and walking around because it does not help you. It makes it worse.
So what's going on in the union? Are you guys are you working with the governor and the president?
Yes, I've been on
paid for sick time, or do you have anything?
Yeah, so we've been on a few conference calls with the governor, and there's another one that's going to be happening today with the governor and labor and the hospitals, because he spoke to the CEOs after a lot of our members, not just my union, but most of the unions, are complaining about shortage of supplies and not proper training for coronavirus, which is scary because they got to be trained properly about how you should approach the room if somebody is affected by it. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. So what looks like is going to happen, to answer your question, is the governor, after today's conference call, is going to put a across-the-board mandate out for what the procedure needs to be, along with the CDC, Public Health Department, and other officials. Because right now it's so much confusion because everybody seems to be doing their own thing, which should not be happening. Right. So
have you found that a lot of your union people are calling in sick and not coming to work, or have they been advised if they're older employees not to come to work?
No. So there's been no advisement. That's a good question. No advisement. At all by any of our members, because of course we speak with them every day at all of our places. That people have been calling out. Besides the shortage of supplies, the other concern has been, since they are essential employees and frontline employees, and they have to go to work, who takes care of their children?
Right.
If you close the daycare centers, so. That's been the other source of complaint, because, now they're making a decision, do I stay home with my kids, or do I take a chance and leave them with somebody that I don't trust, or I don't have a reliable babysitter? That's been the other. So on today's conference call at 12:30, that's going to be discussed as well, and I'll give you guys an update about that, what's going to happen with all frontline employees, not just healthcare workers, so that's police and fire and EMS as well.
Right, because that's important, because I know the schools, we were just talking about, the schools are closing. Most of the schools in all the municipalities have since closed or in the process of closing by the end of this week or Monday of next week. But he did not say anything in regards to daycare as to whether they had to be closed or were required to follow the same mandate as the older kids. So, yeah, that's a good thing.
Now, one other thing I want to say about new emergency order that he put in place. People going to and from work who are essential employees, or just have to go to and from work because we don't want to stop people from working, they can be out after 8 p.m. unless something changes in today's conference call.
Right. Yeah, no, he did say that. In fact, I'm impressed because the mayor did a State of the City address 2 days ago. He made sure that people who did not have internet were able to listen in on the phone, so they did a robocall directly to your house for you to pick up and listen, as well as he did a live feed for people to feed questions. And he did state that non-essential people should not be out and about. But if you are going back and forth to work, it is not the protocol of the police to be harassing people. Just to keep people off the streets, to be congregating, is a no-no. So he did. So I must say that he did an excellent job with his press conference. He had his health director there. A lot of questions were answered. So we got to give Mayor Raz Baraka a thumbs up for that. He gets his full name. He's not M5 this week. He gets his full name.
Now wait a minute now, because I don't want you to go too far with it.
Wait,
because and of course I was on that.
My daughter told me.
I was on that town hall. It was good.
Okay,
But
my daughter told me.
here's the problem.
Here we go.
But go ahead.
The mandate that the notice that was sent to all city hall employees or those that work for the city,
right,
should be rescinded. Let me tell you what he did, because I read it. It says that you will be get your temperature checked before you go through
the door.
Before you go through the metal detector. The problem is you got to check them outside before they walk in, because if I'm exposed and I walk into City Hall because I'm a visitor, but I made an appointment, as he said, this mandate, or a city employee, I've now infected everybody there. That's the whole purpose of doing it outside, not inside. That's
so wait a minute. Whoa. I got a question.
Did that employee letter come out from him, or did it come from the health department?
From his PA, his business administrator.
Okay, well he's a dum we could throw under the bus.
So
Mayor Baraka stood next to the health director, and he did a good job. Let's give him credit for that.
I want to ask this question. So the idea is to determine whether or not somebody may be carrying the coronavirus. They want to take their temperature. That is the gauge. That is the litmus test. But we've already discussed the fact that you could be asymptomatic.
Right, you could be carrying it and have a fever.
So if we understand you could be asymptomatic for 6 days, somebody walks there, you take their temperature, they don't have a temperature. That does not really tell you anything. So what is what is the purpose of?
That was going to be my last. That was going to be my last point, Eric.
That makes no sense.
My last point was exactly that. That's why at the drive-through,
that's what we call false security.
What they're doing is they're swabbing your mouth. You got to swab their mouth. Checking the temperature.
But wait a minute, but
Darren,
wait. But even swabbing their mouth, right? You now have to go and check that culture. That doesn't occur right there. So you're giving false.
You're right.
You're giving false security.
However, we cannot continue to throw her under the bus for trying.
No, Diane. I'm not trying to throw anybody. Diane, let's.
You're right. Swabbing you're not getting those results.
Right.
And taking the temperature is not proving anything.
I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus.
It's not 100% accurate taking it.
Basically, he should be closing all visitation into the department, and he should be working on all of the employees working from home.
Right. That's all I'm saying. Because everything else is false security. Right? Because now somebody walks in, you take their temperature, they say to you, "Oh, I don't have coronavirus." That's not true. That's not true. All it means is you don't have a temperature.
Or you don't recognize the symptoms.
Right. Doesn't mean that you don't have the virus. See, so I would agree with you, Darren, that needs to be rescinded, and they need to be thinking about how to create situations of social distancing for the people who have to be there, right? And but have as many people, create systems for folks to work at home. But listen, this coronavirus has exposed a tremendous amount about our government, and how it works. And I think that, moving forward, people look. And Diane, we talked about this yesterday. Opportunity, right?
Yes.
I think that this is a time for ingenuity, for creativity, right, and for evolution. And what we need to be doing is this. This is what I tell all my clients. You should always do a SWOT analysis. SWOT, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As you look at the current environment, and you look at your business, right? You look at your circumstance, you look at your competitor's business, your competitor's circumstance. What are the strengths in either? what are the weaknesses, where are opportunities, and where are threats that you can mitigate. And if you begin to look at this thing like that, you might find a diamond, right? In terms of an opportunity to create something, because nobody wants to go and revisit this. Once we get a grip on it, right? Nobody's going to want to go back and revisit it. So they're going to be looking at ideas that have been floated out there on how to mitigate risk and damage. And if you have that idea, if you've created that, then you'll be sitting pretty. So,
Eric, a lot of these plans, and Darren knows this, these emergency plans are in place in every single municipality, on every single government level. You have incompetent people who either, one, don't know the plan exists, or two, just won't follow the plan. Because we have honestly been through this, even just saying with a hurricane coming through, Hurricane Katrina, on how to maintain and deal with businesses and people. Diane, this is not something this is not a wheel we got to keep recreating.
Right, but Diane, look, when
on the plan, depending on the circumstances.
But when we have the conversation about qualification, and then you have people who come on and they obfuscate because they want to talk about requirements. Well, the person's old enough, or they live in the jurisdiction, and so they should be entitled. No, it shouldn't go like that. They should be qualified. They should have the requisite skill set to be able to do the job in case of emergency. Not just do the job. See, I don't want somebody to be captain of a ship when the sea is calm. I want to know that when the hurricane comes, you can manage that ship and get us to shore safely, right? Because most people, if the seas are calm, I could put my son and put his hands on the wheels of the ship, and he could pretend that he's steering the ship, but that's not the case, right? If he can steer the ship when we got a Cat 4 hurricane, then he can steer the ship. So what we're seeing now is incompetence all the way down the line.
Yeah, from our president on.
From our president on. Look, they talked about, what they talked about today? They said, I was listening to some Top Line News, and I know we're about to close out, but what they were saying was when they were transferring from Obama's administration to Trump's administration, they had gone through a test model of a situation just like this, right?
That's right.
Where they were saying, if there was a pandemic, what would you do? Now, there were some people who used to be a part of Trump's administration who sat in that workshop and sat in that exercise who are no longer there. Right? So I want you to understand. So 3 years ago, or 3.5, whatever it was, where those people were educated on what to do, right? So Obama's administration was off-ramping information to the Trump administration. Now, when politics came into play, because they didn't think there was going to really be a pandemic, right? They just figured they were going to get in there and fleece America. Right? They were going to take us for all that they could. And that was their focus. So they said, pandemic, mandemic. Who cares about this? And so Trump started moving chess pieces across the board, firing this one, getting rid of that one, creating a culture where this one wanted to quit. He didn't care.
Taking money out of this one.
That's
robbing
right. And so now here we are, and nobody was watching the shop. But that doesn't just happen here at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Look at what happened in Newark at the watershed. Right? Look at what happened when all of those qualified people were gone. Right? Then so it happens at every level of government. So I'm not just willing to point my finger over here at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm saying, listen, guys, this is happening everywhere. And nobody is watching the storefront.
Yeah.
And we're about to be fleeced. And that video that I played, and I'm going to play it when we end. Right now, with all of what's going on, trust and believe, you've got those lobbyists down there sniffing around in Washington. trying to figure out how to dust off old ideas because nobody's paying attention.
Right.
Everybody's being misdirected. And when it's all over, when the dust settles, we will have nothing left. They will have fleeced the entire government.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on right now. And so, and I'm going to say this. Look, I think that at this point, we need to slow down. Because understand what's happening. On the Democratic side, they're saying, hey, listen, the election's over. I mean, you know, so the primary's over. What we should do is Bernie Sanders should just drop out and it's fait accompli. We should just be done with it. I'm saying, whoa, put the brakes on. Put the brakes on it. See, because you have we need to have all ideas on the table now. We need to have every voice still being heard right now. Because what I do know is the guy that they want to nominate stood before corporate America and said nothing was going to fundamentally change. You see, and so if we look and we see the condition we're in right now, and he's saying nothing's going to change, I am deeply concerned. And I'm deeply concerned by anybody who's trying to drag me down that path. We need to slow down, people. Like Mike Spruill said, they want to cancel elections now.
Yeah.
We need to slow down. I'm going to play that video when we end the show, but we got Will Hathaway who just called in from Orange. What's going on, Will?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing today, man?
Hey,
you know,
man.
we just gotta stay humble, man. You know, what I'm about to say is this, man. You know, the economy, you know, I just got done watching, you know, Bozo 45, I call him now, you know, every day news conference. Oh, Bozo 45 with his troops in the White House, okay? Plenty of sand sanitizers. And, you know, they're robbing her. You know, what I'm about to say, Eric, you know, I heard rumors of canceling elections, okay. I heard other rumors that there's a lot of price gouging here in Orange. You know, with these stores, like it's called E&M Pharmacy, C-Town. I'm just going to name the names. And it's very concerning that, you know, China has not caught a case today. You know, I don't know if China is a day forward or a day back, but I heard China hasn't caught a case today.
They're 4 months. They're estimating them to be 4 months ahead of us. So
really?
at this point in time, all the deaths and people infected in China, if we don't take, and today is the first day of their plateau where it stops, and then we look for it to go to the downswing.
Okay.
So if we continue, if we're going to get ahead of it, the object is to look at the model that got them to the point where their deaths.
So did you guys see you ever guys? I don't know if you guys watched Don Lemon the other night. Okay,
no, I didn't watch him.
Watched him last night.
Okay, from CNN. Well, I didn't watch it the night before, where the Bozo 45 was saying, hey, you know, we knew this in January that this was going to happen. You know what I mean?
No, he didn't. He knew it in November.
Oh, we knew it in November.
In November.
Okay.
It was on what, NPR News and the BBC.
Yep. Yes.
They were looking for America to do the same thing that we did with the Ebola virus in November. He called it a Democratic hoax.
So, you know, another thing, what is this with this $1,000 per family? I've heard stuff about this.
So
that
what I'm going to say,
in Washington,
I know Diane's telling me that we're going over, so I'm going to be real quick about this. So here's the thing. And this is why I'm saying that we got to be careful, guys. The money that they're talking about giving, we got to be careful that this isn't just a transference of wealth to the top 1%. And what I mean by that, Will, is this. If they're giving you money just to pay your rent, or they're giving you money to pay your car note, or they're giving you money just so that you can pay the interest on your credit card or to pay your student loan, then all they're doing is giving you money to transfer back to these people, right? This money that they give you, they need to suspend. You got to listen to what Ilhan is saying, listen to what Representative AOC is saying, listen to what Ayanna Pressley is saying, listen to what Bernie Sanders. What they're saying is you need to suspend all of this other stuff, right? You need to freeze student loans, you need to freeze rent, you need to freeze all these things, and you need to put money in the hands of people to take care of eating, right, and of essential things. That essential things ought not be feeding the top 1%. But if they don't create that, then all this is a transfer of wealth. That's all it is. Now, last thing I want to say, Diane, and then yes, we're going to be done. Is there any price gouging going on there in Orange, Will? I've seen.
Oh man, let me tell you. I was told the other day, I got from a friend of mine that lives here in Orange. Okay, she was shopping at the local C-Town.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were charging. You had to use your $10 minimum on items that you couldn't, like paper towels, toilet paper, water. But they were price gouging the water. I brought it to the authorities of the Consumer Affairs. It needs to be investigated. It's really sad when you have, in the cities that the people that own stores, they really don't live here, and they're actually taking product and using this as a stand. You know what I mean?
So here's what I'm going to say. Firstly, Diane put something up on her page. It's got like thousands and thousands of shares. Diane, I'd ask you to repost that and also put that number in this feed.
So I would like to ask Diane a question. Okay. So good morning, Diane. Hope all is well and keep safe out there. You and your family also.
Will passed away, although the township of Hillside, we don't know what's going on, but other than that.
So if I went online today, okay, and did a complaint, how long would you think it'd take?
Complaint to who?
Complain to the Consumer Affairs Division.
I don't know. They're taking them online and they're taking them by phone, but they are taking them very seriously. And I would say to take pictures.
Right.
Because when you take pictures...
Actually, have you seen... I don't know if you guys are friends with me on Facebook. I actually went into the ShopRite last week. I had to go to the ShopRite in East Orange, and I think it was over capacity. And I did let one of my friends know he works as a fire official in the city of East Orange, where the capacity. I thought the capacity was like overwhelming. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's a serious concern. For officials to be concerned. Like around the corner from a pharmacy. Okay. They're actually, where I go get, products and stuff, they're actually telling you to stop at the door, okay? There's a young lady that comes to take your order and gives your product. But I just want to know your feelings or Eric's feelings about de Blasio, him and de Blasio and Cuomo going at it for self-isolation and lockdown,
That question. Thanks for calling, Will.
Answer your question real quick.
So
with
go ahead,
Diane. You can go online. I'm flipping through to find the phone number, but I'll repost it on my Facebook page. Anybody wants it, I'll repost it. I'll put it in the feed about Consumer Affairs. Will, for the ShopRite right there at the Brick Church location, directly across the street on the corner is the Assemblywoman's office, Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. You can always call that office, and they'll go over there and handle that as well in regards to the ShopRite and the other locations that are price gouging.
Right.
Can I say
in regards
to one thing real quick?
What you saying?
And let's say one thing real quick, guys. In Jersey City, the dollar store was somehow Consumer Affairs acted very quickly, so I don't know how they did it, but it happened very fast. They got fined $90,000 or something. So,
right, they get fined. They get fined up to like $500 per item. So if they had 15 cans of Lysol that they were charging, $20 a piece for, they get charged $500 for each of those 15 cans. So here, Diane, I think that you're right. You got to document it. So take pictures, take videos of it, right? So even if Affairs doesn't respond right now, they will respond, and that store will be fine. The other thing is this: hey guys, these are stores that are in your communities that are abusing you. You need to, aside from looking for Consumer Affairs to deal with them, you all need to deal with them by not patronizing them, right? So when this is all over, don't have short memories, have very long memories, and remove them from your community by not patronizing them. See, and this is why I play it. He says, look, you got to fight for yourself. You got to fight for yourself. You can't just wait for somebody else to do it. If somebody is kicking your ass, you got to put your hands up and swing back. Come on. Listen, thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank our guest, Lori, again for calling in. Please go and download and purchase No More Measles. And we'll be talking to her to see if we can get her to be a regular on the show, because I thought that the information that she provided here was very, very useful. Hit the share button. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Diane, I'm going to eat my
Be safe, America.
I'm going to eat my Girl Scout cookies, Diane.
You eating your Girl Scout cookies? That's right. Lay down and eat those cookies and relax.
That's it.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Oh, where's the